You're listening to the Actors Resource with Alice Kwan, a podcast for actors and improvisers, with interviews from entertainment industry experts.
Our guest today is Sanji DeSilva, who is a filmmaker who is committed to creating socially and culturally aware content. Her production company, The Angry Elephant Productions, was founded in 2013, creating numerous works such as The Therapist and Not Forever, which has received laurels from Hollywood New Directors and LA Underground Film Forum. In addition to directing and producing, she currently teaches civic engagement through documentary filmmaking with the program New Voices for Youth, and works freelance as a grip and an assistant director on set. Welcome, Sanji.
Hi, how are you?
Good. I'm so glad to have you on the Actors Resource podcast. I just want to say I love the name of your production company.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, I love it. Like, the angry elephant is so image evoking, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Elephants have always been my favorite animal, so I don't know how I came up with the name exactly, but I have like a good idea. I remember I remember I was trying to figure out the name of for a production company because I was like, everyone else has one, I'm sure I could do it too, when I was 17, and thought that I'd be, Steven Spielberg.
But you're going to be, well, you're not going to be Steven Spielberg. You're going to be Sanji DeSilva, but along the same status, right?
Oh, I like to think so.
Yes.
But yeah, I used to go to, I'm Sri Lankan, and I used to go to the elephant, wildlife preserves, and there was a few orphanages, and there were a lot of different, elephant things that I used to go see when I was a kid.
Uh-huh.
And now and then I'd hear the stories about people poaching elephants, and I thought, they can't get angry for themselves, so I should get angry for them, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know, it was a weird tangent, but I came up with this idea that we were going to help the elephants through my production company. Of course, I looked into it, and I found out there are tons of organizations helping elephants. Well, I thought maybe not the elephants, maybe children. And and after teaching kids and after, working on lots of narrative and documentary stuff, I really found out there aren't as many things going towards certain groups of children.
Really?
So there are a lot of different organizations, obviously, for children, but there's so many pockets of children in different areas that get forgotten by maybe bigger problems.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of groups of children who get overlooked in terms of trying to get help. This can be from mental health in countries, Asian countries specifically. I know a lot of countries have a very, very dismal outlook on the idea of mental health, and so a lot of children can get lost in that in countries that still have that outlook. And then there's a lot of sex trafficking that I've found, and child trafficking that comes from there's so many various things that children have become victim to because of the nature of our society. So what eventually the idea of the angry elephant came to somewhat symbolize is that we want to give back to our community, and the biggest thought that we had was to give back to children.
Yeah. So are you thinking, is your main priority with your production company to create films, narratives, documentaries that really can help show some of the things that are going on with children, perhaps in other countries, that for audiences that might forget about them, and then would proceeds go to help them? Is that your idea, or? So
the idea is that when we eventually make a profit, which has not come yet, we have rather not got a profit, the other way around.
Yeah.
But when the time comes that we do make a profit, that we hope 10% can go to children's foundations and to create and foster better care for a lot more children in like diverse and kind of hidden pockets of the world. So as a group, we work on a number of topics.
Mm-hmm.
There are a few that are specifically geared to children. One specifically talking about child grief, and another talking about is it actually made for the child? Okay, the child grief.
Mm-hmm. Yes, please. Could you get into a little bit more specifically about the child grief that you're talking about?
Yeah. So when I was a kid, my sister passed away.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, it was a good decade ago, but I didn't really know how to handle the grief, and I didn't realize I was grieving for a long time because she had cancer, so I thought I was prepped for it. That everyone had prepped me for this day. And so my parents also really didn't know what to do. And I don't think any parent really understands what their kid is going to go through grieving a loss like that, like grieving the loss of a grandparent or a brother or sister. It's a difficult thing to navigate. And yes. I think, so the idea was to create a short film about a little girl who's come to the understanding that her sibling is dying, and she's not necessarily showing like outward bursts of emotion, and she's because a lot of children, when it comes to those situations, instead of like actively crying or getting angry or something that an adult would do because they're emotionally able to process those feelings, a kid will kind of just keep it inside and kind of let almost like shock hit them. And then one thing I learned was that it takes about 2 years to realize someone is gone. So it takes a good 2 years, especially for children and teenagers, to understand the loss entirely. And then when it really does hit, it hits hard.
Oh.
So it's a short story. It's meant, I think, more for adults. I think it's meant for parents and adults to kind of understand the grief of a kid, to be more aware of that grief at a young age is very different from grief as an adult.
I'm sorry you had to go through that. I'm grateful that you did, in that you're able to now know and understand something, unfortunately through your own personal experience, but that you're able to share that so that it can help other, not just grown-ups, but also maybe, I know it's geared more towards grown-ups, like you said, or parents, but, a kid too might be able to see it and go, oh, okay, this is what's going on for me too. So they feel not so, what's that?
A little less alone.
Yes. So they don't feel so alone or lost, right? And floundering, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's really cool. I'm awfully clamped. I'm like ready to cry. I'm sorry.
No, okay. So I mean, I think sometimes I'm very willing to talk about it just because it's become such a big part of my life, talking about things like that.
Yeah.
That I realize that people get affected by it.
And that's good.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's good. Another project that we have that's definitely kid oriented is a series. We're trying to write a full, maybe like 12 episodes for a series.
A web series? I'm sorry, a web series?
No, not a web series. It's a television series. I mean, if one day we get to make it, maybe it'll be on the web. We're not sure. But the concept basically is about kind of understanding historical snapshots.
Mm-hmm.
So
explain further. What do you mean?
So I'm teaching the children civic engagement through documentary film, right? And I'm teaching middle schoolers. And middle schoolers, it's particularly hard for them to get a grasp on a lot of things because they watch shows that are made for high schoolers, and shows that are made for them are more geared towards younger children. There isn't a lot out there that's specifically targeted to them. And if there is, they don't watch it. They're uninterested.
Interesting. Why is that?
I think a lot of it is they do watch things like Disney Channel, but they kind of have this idea, oh, it's babyish. And so what they'll watch instead, they'll try and watch R-rated movies and stuff like that. And they don't really understand everything they're getting from that. It's difficult for them to understand those things. But that's that's more interesting to them. There's nothing that's both interesting and easy for them to comprehend fully.
Yeah. And that does remind me, like, it was many years ago, but when I was little, I always wanted to be older, right? Like,
and you always act older, pretending.
Trying to, right? I did anyways.
Me too. 100%. Yeah.
But I wonder why middle schoolers aren't interested in, well, it sounds like there's not that much programming specifically for their age group, but then it sounds like you're saying that they're not interested in the shows that are created for their age group. Wonder why that is.
So I work specifically in more of a low-income area.
Uh-huh.
So there are shows, almost every kid has cable, but even then, a lot of kids, maybe they don't get all the cable channels as like everyone else or something. And even channels like Disney Channel and Nickelodeon Cartoon Network, which have like these amazing, really well thought out shows right now. And I'm like, even I watch them right now. Like they're considered babyish to them. A lot of the Disney Channel series are considered childish. And so high schoolers definitely won't watch them. Mm-hmm. And they're geared towards preteens, middle schoolers. But the middle schoolers are taking note from the high schoolers, for instance, and saying, oh, that's geeky, that's babyish, right?
Right.
And since I was a teenager, a lot of things have been, I don't know if censored is the right word for it, but have been made more easily available for elementary schoolers because people noticed, obviously, elementary school children were also watching this TV. So it's been made more accessible for a larger audience, but that also means that middle schoolers kind of get cut out a little bit.
Gotcha. And so your idea is you want to create some content specifically for middle schoolers that they would be interested in. Is that correct? Uh-huh.
Exactly. And the goal of it, like, I think there's part of me that's like, since I want it to be educational, it might not be as successful with middle schoolers as I hope. It's kind of like a series of historical fiction.
Okay.
So we take a day in the life of a kid who is maybe in the apartheid era, right?
Yep.
And they talk, so like apartheid era, you have things like color, like specific colorism. There's designations of racism that are a little different from America. And kids, I talk to the kids that I'm teaching, and they don't know anything about the Holocaust, about apartheid. They have
what?
Yeah, I asked them what Holocaust is, and it's like, oh, it's when people died, right? I asked them about civil rights. They said, oh, that's Martin Luther King, right? That's all they know about these things, and they are middle schoolers, so a lot of that stuff is, it is a little bit out of their reach, but like it's definitely something they're blissfully unaware of, in a sense.
Right.
So it's kind of like they don't really have a context for a lot of the things that they're seeing online. Like right now, like they can tell me all about immigration and stuff. They don't really understand the topics, and they don't understand why it's important to talk about certain topics, and they don't see how these things became the way they are. Right? Because they have no context for them, but they're hearing buzzwords and they're repeating it, and they have no idea what it means. Yeah. And when you ask them, they have a general idea, and sometimes they're definitely right, and it's really interesting to see how they absorb stuff. Because they live in a world where obviously there's so much knowledge available to them, but like half of it is, it's kind of fake or even just misguiding.
Yeah.
If you understand the context behind it, like even reading the New York Times or something that's considered like journalistically more, I don't know how to say it, more legitimate.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Things that are considered like legitimate news organizations or are overall kind of considered that, like the AP News Journal. No kid's gonna read the AP News Journal.
What adults read it? Not very many. I don't know. Maybe some.
I think I only know about it because I did so much research in college, but like...
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of kids will never have the chance to look at what's considered unbiased news because today's news is just not unbiased, and it's not in a sense, it's not clear context wise. So you hear about things like Clinton, Benghazi, they have no idea what that means. I don't even know what that means half the time. I don't think many people do. And they hear all these things and they hear, oh, this person's bad because of this person's done this and they're bad. And they hear details of something, but they don't get an overall context. And it's hard when you're a kid to try and find that. You can't go searching for it. Someone has to present it to you. Right.
And there's so much out there that if they were interested, it's hard to tell. Like, it can get confusing, right? Because there's so much. Yeah.
There's like... So one of the things we talk about in class is we talk about a few different things. We talk about racism, we talk about pollution, we talk about poverty, and some of the kids don't speak perfect English either. And so we were talking about racism and poverty and the links between racism and poverty. And I tend to try not to put words in their mouth. I try and let them talk about it. And they have real questions that I don't even know how to answer because I learned it through so much historical context that me having like 45 minutes to talk to them about it, it's impossible. And there's no way for them to relate to it. They live in a little bubble of their own community.
Right.
And if they do go out into a bubble where they're different, they don't know how to say, oh, this is not right, or I'm being treated unfairly. We made a PSA about racism, and they did all of it. They came up with the idea, everything. And it took a long time for them to realize what it meant to be racially profiled. And this is interesting because these are a group of they're children of color. They're all from different ethnicities, but they had never they live in an area where they are the biggest. They're the majority. Even though they're children of color, they haven't necessarily experienced the same things people my age had to experience, and people much older than me definitely had to experience school. So they have a lot of misguided notions about things as well.
And so this web series, or not web series, but this TV series that you're creating based on like historical fiction, you said, is that right? Like history, but then you're making it kind of fun and from a child's point of, or a middle schooler's point of view. Would you be doing it for from different, like, what's your idea again?
So the idea is to focus on a class of kids.
Yeah.
One class, and we kind of follow, maybe we see a snippet of their lives. Like, for instance, they're caught up with looking Instagram ready. They're caught up with little parts of their lives which are, like tough that they have to fight through, right? And then trying to find that emotional connection and tying it back to a historical event and time.
Ah, interesting.
So for instance, in South Asia, there's this huge push to be lighter skinned, right?
Okay, yeah.
So there's a thing called Fair and Lovely. It's bleaching cream.
Right. I heard that was a thing, and that now people are more aware, and that it's becoming less of a thing.
Yes, definitely. But when the British came to India and Pakistan and Sri Lanka and all those places, they brought this idea of like quote unquote conventional beauty, which is Western beauty, right? And so later on, so in the 70s and 80s, the 60s, 70s, and 80s, people were bleaching their skin to try and conform to this idea of fair is beautiful. And so what we do is we juxtapose trying to look Instagram ready. This like teen, like preteen, trying to look Instagram ready, trying to hang out with her friends, has more on her mind. Her mom's annoying, right? We see her start of the day and her initial issue, and then we cut to a classroom situation where she hears a little bit about one country, for instance, in India. And then you go to the day in the life of an Indian girl, per se, who has to kind of also conform her looks. Maybe she's dark-skinned and all of her friends are light-skinned and all that kind of stuff. And also going through similar issues, right? Mm-hmm. And we date it. We don't give historical facts necessarily, but we put it within a historical time period, and we let the facts kind of inform themselves by following this kid through their story, and then kind of juxtaposing it with what today's kid deals with. So we don't feel this like, oh, these kids had it so much worse than me, right? But we see that, a lot of things stay the same. And there is a lot of power that we put to different issues and stuff like that. And not all of them are issues. Some of them, it's just you're just seeing a day in the life, and we're seeing an interesting story that happened to someone. And so we're doing a lot of research right now. We're trying to figure out the best way to kind of show all the things we want to show. It is complex. So we really kind of think about simplifying it a lot of the time, and then we overcomplicate it. It's a difficult process, especially with kids television.
Sure. Yeah.
Find that balance between interesting, educational, and not too explicit.
Yeah. And
also not too heavy.
Yeah.
Yes. So like it's been weird trying to navigate that, but that's happening in the background with all the other stuff that's going on. And both of those projects are like in the background now. We're trying to use our current projects to really create and get all the projects we want done and maybe fundraise from them. And then hopefully make these projects out of those.
Gotcha. And what are you currently working on? What current projects?
So right now we're working on 2 series, both web series. One of them's called Pieces. They're biodocumentaries about personality. Okay. About a person's perspective on their own personality, I guess. A lot of P's.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So it's kind of what we do is we ask a lot of questions, deep questions, maybe considered shallow questions, but questions that people can tell a story with, right? Mm-hmm. And then we ask them to tell a larger story that they feel is like a metaphor or expresses who they are as a person or expresses their life. Mm-hmm. So they could say anything from The Little Mermaid to a real story to a made-up story, whatever. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we just make it so that we see this overarching story and these details, and we cut the details into the larger story.
Well, that sounds really neat. How many of these are you doing?
So we hope to do in total 12, but right now we've only shot 3, and we're in production for all of them, post-production for all of them right now. Mm-hmm. It is a lot harder than making a narrative, which is, not harder than making a narrative, but more involved, I'd say, which in a sense doesn't make sense because you have to write a script and everything for a narrative production. Mm-hmm.
When you say narrative, just in case somebody's listening, they're like, I haven't heard the word narrative before. What does that mean?
A narrative film is one that's kind of fictional, I guess, or fictionalized. So a historical film is a narrative. So something like a documentary doesn't necessarily follow the formula of a narrative story. It could, but it's still not considered a narrative because it's real life, I guess. Right. So yeah, that's kind of the gist of it. I think there's like a ton more details, and you can get super into it. I can't. I'm not really able to.
No. I think it's more just to let people know narratives basically, like most movies you see, are fictional stories.
Yes. Yeah, it's more difficult because in a narrative film, we've already created a script, we've already created a story. Mm-hmm. With this, we do have a story, but we have to add on to the story. And so for a documentary, this is a lot easier than usual because we have the base story laid out and we just have to fill in the details. But we have to create a script, essentially. Mm. We're a script from footage that's already been shot. So
it's like reality TV, but with story.
Exactly. It is. It is. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah. And reality TV is very similar. Like, I don't think reality TV is something that people like, oh, it's so quick and trashy or whatever. It's not. It is also very difficult to edit.
Yes.
Documentary sense. A little bit more staged sometimes, but
yeah.
you have to create a story out of what's happening in their lives, right? And so there's not always going to be a story about everything, but you have to kind of make, for reality TV, they kind of have to stage it to make it seem so.
Yeah.
In this case, we already have a story. We're just trying to fill in the details, and that takes forever.
I think it's a really cool, neat idea, though. So that's really awesome. Only 9 more to go.
So if we get the first 3 out, hopefully we'll keep on go. We'll be able to keep on going and raise more money to make it. The good thing is that with the Angry Elephant production, a lot of people who have worked on productions, did so for free. They did so because either they liked the content or they were willing to help people out. So we've been very lucky and we haven't had to use so much money, but we still need money to make this stuff. It's impossible. Like, it sounds great and it's a passion project, but it's just not possible to make without money.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that also we want to stand for as a group is the ability to try and pay every artist. Because it's very difficult as an artist to get paid. People consistently kind of trivialize the work we do. Especially actors and actresses and filmmakers in general. People think it's a lot easier than it is. And so they're not willing to pay what people deserve. Do you agree with that, Alice?
Well, it's interesting because on one hand, I totally see that. And on another hand, I'm learning some new ways of thinking and some new mindsets as well. So, because, there's definitely artists out there that are making a ton of money, or other artists out there that are making, really good money, and they might not even be celebrities, but they're definitely making money. But there is definitely also people who are actors, artists, creatives, who are being taken advantage of or not being seen with the amount of respect,
not having the quality of their work be, I guess, I don't know if it's monetized, like you're not getting provided the same amount of money for the quality of work you're making or the time you spent making something.
Yeah. And so that does totally happen as well. So that's not okay, Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was the other project that you're currently working on?
Okay, so right now we are making a web series called Riding in Cars with Strangers. We have already filmed our first episode, and in a few weeks we're filming our next episode, and then the weekend after that another 4 episodes, and then the weekend after that another 2. And it's all about a girl, Emmy Diaz. She just moved to a new city, somewhere in the Bay Area. We're not specifying where, but somewhere in the Bay Area, and she doesn't have a car. And so she explores her city and consequently herself by going through these crazy ride shares. So she goes on ride shares and she meets people like Asian Elvis, or they're like our first episode, Roberto, the Madonna extraordinaire, and like just a bunch of people who have little quirky sides to them, who are still people. I think that personally I've met people just like them, people who seem a little out there but are also human, normal. And so we follow her journey throughout the year as she changes slowly by meeting these people.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so right now we're in the midst of production. We've worked really hard. I have an amazing team behind me. So the guys from Pixel Valley Studios and Pull My Focus, they're respectively producing and editing the web series. And really great DP and sound people, and our actress is just amazing, beautiful, talented, multifaceted, amazing. And all of our cast is just really beautiful people who worked very, very hard.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah, and I've been so lucky to be able to meet these people and have them be part of my project and our project, really, because they've not only put in extra time and effort and all this work to create these characters, they've also made it a really fun time, which is very hard sometimes to find on a set, is a set that feels comfortable. And I'm happy because that's that. It's my project, and knowing that people have had a decent time is very fulfilling.
Definitely. That is so cool, and that's awesome that is happening.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like our time is up, Sanji. Oh, and one last thing. How do people get a hold of you? If they want to help donate or just to contact you, how do people contact you?
So our production company email is angryelephantproductions1. So angry.elephant.productions1@gmail.com. Right now we're fundraising for both pieces and Writing in Cars with Strangers, and we have an Indiegogo for that.
Awesome.
And you can follow our Facebook page, The Angry Elephant Productions. We also have a YouTube page. It is sparse because a lot of our stuff is going through film festivals, but it will not always be sparse. It will not be sparse very, very soon. And yeah, check out Public Access Channel number 18 in San Jose, and you'll see our work there too.
Woo! Awesome!
So we are everywhere.
That is awesome.
Yeah, and if anyone ever wants to help out as an artist or is interested in learning about film in general, we work as a group we're coworkers. It's not a competitive organization. It's an organization that we want to lift other people up with us. So if anyone's interested in learning more, wants to be a production assistant, wants to just help out or just even be on set, we'd love to have you.
And I love that. I love that that it's a very uplifting environment. So that is so great. Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been a wonderful interview, and I love your purpose and what you're making. Yeah, thank you so much for being on the Actors Resource Podcast.
Thank you. It's been really great talking to you. Always fun.
Yes.
Thank you for listening to the Actors Resource Podcast with me, Alice Kwong. I'd love to hear from you. If you have ideas or questions that you'd love to have answered on the show, please send me an email. Holla, HOLLA, at alicekwongactor.com. Alice, ALICE, Kwong, KWONG, actor, ACTOR.com. Thank you so much. Bye.